Only in Kentucky can a group of adults shut down a neighborhood street to hit a stick with another stick, call it a world championship, and somehow turn it into one of Louisville's most meaningful traditions. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky. And today, I'm learning more about something I thought I knew pretty well already. Schnitzelburg's World Championship Dainty Contest. You know how the first Saturday in May belongs to the Derby? Well, in Schnitzelburg, the last Monday in July belongs to the Dainty. The contest takes place every year here at the corner of Goss and Hoertz Avenues in the Louisville Schnitzelburg neighborhood. This section of Hoertz is also known as George Hauck Way, named after the man most closely associated with the modern Dainty tradition. Dainty is an old German street game played with two pieces of wood. The Dainty itself is a small wooden peg about 5 inches long, sharpened at both ends. The bat is roughly 3 feet long and is traditionally made from an old broomstick. You place the Dainty on the ground, strike one end of its pointed ends to make it jump up into the air, and then try to hit it again while it's airborne. Wherever it lands, that's your distance. Hit it farther than everyone else, and congratulations, you're now the world champion. It's not that easy. It's really, really difficult. Every time wood touches wood, it counts as a strike. You get 3 strikes. You have to hold the bat with one hand, and contestants in the official championship here have to be at least 45 years old. And according to Dainty tradition, practicing beforehand is illegal. As a Schnitzelburg resident, this isn't just a strange Kentucky event I found while researching the Dainty. Its history and the culture of this neighborhood are all really important to me. So, German immigrants introduced Dainty to Louisville at some point in the 1800s. Some accounts place its arrival in the 1860s specifically, which would align more closely with the period when German immigrants were settling at Schnitzelburg in large numbers. And Dainty may be Louisville's version of a much older family of games played around the world. It closely resembles the English game Tip Cat, which also uses a long stick to knock a smaller tapered piece of wood into the air. It also maybe looks a little bit like Gilidanda, a traditional South Asian game played with one long stick and one smaller pointed stick. It suggests maybe that Dainty belongs to a very old and widespread category of games invented by people who had 2 sticks and an open street. So it's probably best to say that Dainty came out of Louisville's German immigrant culture, but we don't have a well-documented year for when someone first played it here. What we do know much more clearly, though, is that George Hauck and Charlie Vettner revived the modern World Championship Dainty contest in 1971. Charlie Vettner, whose name Louisville residents may recognize from the East End Park, was a longtime public official and neighborhood figure who helped George bring the Dainty back. George had played the game as a child during the Great Depression. His family owned Hauck's Handy Store, which opened here at the corner of Goss and Hoertz in 1912. After serving in the Navy during World War II, George eventually took over the store and became one of the neighborhood's defining figures. The original Hauck's wasn't a restaurant or, the polished neighborhood bar that it is today. It was a corner store that sold groceries, lunch meat, beer, and small necessities that people could pick up without really leaving the neighborhood. Anyway, the Dainty contest grew out of that relationship between the store and the people around it. Some have described the event as an appreciation day of sorts, George's way of giving something back to the neighborhood that has supported his family business. A 45 and older rule may have started for a similarly practical reason. George's daughter, Lynn, believed organizers needed some way to stop everyone in the neighborhood from entering, so what may have begun as a crowd control measure eventually became one of the championship's most famous traditions. This is also where the Dainty's traditional meal comes in, a plain bologna sandwich on white bread, potato chips, and a pickle. The event also developed a charitable relationship with the Little Sisters of the Poor and the St. Joseph Home. The sisters, residents of the home and neighborhood families, became regulars in the crowd, and proceeds and donations from the contests helped support their work caring for older adults with limited financial resources. So underneath the beer and the broomsticks here, there is community function. For decades, the event heavily centered on George himself. He welcomed people, told stories, handed out the traditional food, and served as the living connection between the old neighborhood game and its modern revival. George Hauck died in 2020 at the age of 100, and the corner changed after that. The old Hauck's Handy Store was eventually renovated into the bar and restaurant now called Hauck's Corner. The developers preserved parts of the original building and created a small museum place recognizing the Hauck family and the property's history. The current business calls itself the home of the Dainty, and geographically that's understandable. The contest still happens outside the building where George's store stood. That said, Hauck's Corner does not own or independently organize the Dainty contest. The World Championship is an independently organized neighborhood tradition supported by the Schnitzelburg Area Community Council, Dainty Fest organizers, volunteers, and the larger community. The modern bar occupies an important historic location and has helped preserve the physical setting, but the game itself belongs to the neighborhood and to the people who have kept it alive. And the volunteers who keep it alive work very, very hard. You know who you are. Thank you. And so in the modern era, organizers have also expanded the celebration into a full weekend called Dainty Fest. What was once only the Monday Championship now includes Dainty pre-games such as a bologna eating contest and pickle brine drinking contest, music, food, wrestling, and a batting cage where younger people can try the game, and a parade through the streets of Schnitzelburg, although the batting cage, some say, still illegal. The expanded festival also raises money for neighborhood projects while continuing the charitable spirit that was part of George's event. Then on Monday, everything returns to George Hauck Way for the World Championship. There's a ceremonial contest involving local politicians and local celebrities. The official competitors step up one at a time. Volunteers measure every successful hit. The shortest hitter traditionally receives a basket of lemons. Someone eventually walks away as a champion of a sport that most of the world has never heard of. The current world record is 173 feet, set by Jason Lippa in 2024. The distance is besides the point, however, because the reason the Dainty has survived isn't that Louisville desperately needed another competitive stick-hitting league. It's because our neighborhood decided that this weird little game was part of who we are. Schnitzelburg has changed. The corner store became a bar. Home prices have risen. Old families moved away and new people came in. George is no longer standing outside Hauck's handing out sandwiches, but every last Monday in July, we still close down this street, eat bologna, and hit a sharpened piece of wood down George Hauck Way, just like George intended. Happy Dainty Day, Louisville.